Okay, everybody, hello. It's Gina Sunderland, Food and Consumer Relations Specialist, dietitian with Manitoba Chicken Producers. Welcome to our Earth Day Facebook Live. I am so excited to be joined here by my friend and colleague, professional home economist, Getty Stewart. And I'm going to turn it over to Getty and have her introduce herself to you. And you may have noticed Getty and I are each in our home kitchens. Well, we really wanted to bring you this event this evening. We thought it was so important. We're so excited to share our tips and our recipes with all of you, but we are also cognizant of what is going on in our community. And we wanted to make sure that not only are we safe, but we help to keep all of you safe too. So we are broadcasting from each of our home kitchens, and we hope everything goes really well and we can still bring you a really, really awesome event. So I am going to turn it over to you, Getty, now to introduce yourself.
Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to my kitchen. My name is Getty Stewart, and I am a professional home economist. My joy is to share ideas and tips and recipes using fresh, local, seasonal ingredients. And tonight is one of those examples. And as a home economist, I love adding little tips for you to save money, to save the produce that you're using and the foods that you're using as well, with little tips on storing and keeping them as fresh as possible for as long as possible. So I'm looking forward to helping you prepare this amazing dish. But before I do, I'm going to turn it back over to Gina, and she's going to let you know about some of our prizes and how tonight's going to work.
Oh my goodness, Getty, you are making me hungry, and I literally just finished supper. Right, so this evening, the way things are going to work is I am going to turn it back to Getty. She is going to make her wonderful creamy mushroom, spinach, and chicken pasta recipe for us. And then Getty is going to turn it back over to me, and I am going to make our Manitoba Chicken Producers warm grilled chicken salad with spinach and beans. So two fabulous recipes that use actually similar ingredients, but are so diverse. And you know what? That's a great tip right there, that you can prepare your meal plan and your grocery list and buy ingredients that you can make many different recipes with. And as Getty mentioned, we have a fantastic prize. We have 3 $75 grocery gift cards to give away this evening. So enough grocery funds to make both of these recipes and throw a few treats into your cart as well. And you will be eligible to win one of these 3 grocery gift cards just for tuning into our event, sharing a comment, maybe your favorite way to save your food dollars or to extend your produce, or some of your favorite food and money saving tips, or asking Getty and I a question, because we love having the opportunity to answer everyone's questions. So I'm excited to be joined by Getty this evening, as I mentioned. I'm sure many of you have had the opportunity to see Getty on maybe a media interview on television, or maybe you've seen some of her great social posts or been to her website for great tips. So I'm excited to learn from you, Getty, and I'm going to turn it right back over to you to make this absolutely delicious chicken pasta recipe.
Thanks, Gina. So let's jump right in. I have got my pan going, and I kind of snuck ahead and done a few steps. So let me catch you up. So the first thing is you want to saute your chicken and have some really nice flavor to that. Now, if, like Gina suggested, you're using leftover chicken, which is fantastic for this recipe as well. So always doing double duty when you can. Use those leftovers. But if you're starting from fresh chicken, either thighs or chicken breast for this recipe, season it really well, cook it, and then set it aside, because we're going to add that right at the very end. But we sauteed that, then we went ahead and we sauteed some mushrooms and garlic and some peppers. Now, the recipe calls for red pepper. If you've got yellow or orange pepper, use that. So this is a recipe that you can add whatever veggies you've got in the fridge, and that's another great technique for, let me just turn that down a bit, for saving money for you and being a little bit more sustainable when it comes to our environment. So using what you have. So our sauce, I'm using real cream here. I'm talking the 35% milk fat cream. Notice how it's boiling. Real cream, like the high-fat cream, can handle boiling. If you're using low-fat or you're using milk, especially skim milk, it can't handle boiling. It will curdle on you. So using the real stuff is fantastic flavor, great mouthfeel, rich, decadent, and just perfect for this recipe. So our sauce is bubbling. Time for the greens. Now, Gina's using greens, and I'm using greens. That meal planning that she talked about, fantastic for, again, being savvy with your pocketbook and with the environment. When it comes to greens, this is one of the big culprits for food waste. So what I like to do is I like to buy greens like spinach and kale, Swiss chard, any of the ones that work great as a salad, like Gina's going to show you, or that work in a hot dish like this. So I've chopped my greens a little bit. This is the way my kids will eat it. If it's big and long and chunky, they're less likely to eat it. So in it goes. And I just want to have it get wilted. So I want to keep that nice crisp green color. I'm just going to put it in for a little bit, stir it around. And all we're doing at this point is just cooking it down a little bit and seeing what's going on with our sauce. And
so freaking easy.
Yeah, doesn't it? The colors are fantastic and certainly add to the dish. And not to mention the nutrients, but I know you don't want to hear about that. Just know that it's all good. So now we've got those melted, and we are going to look at our sauce. We want to add our pasta and our chicken at this point. And then you decide, do you want your sauce a little bit thicker? Do you want it, then you can add a little bit of cornstarch slurry. Now I've saved a little bit of the pasta sauce. It has a little bit of starch. It has some salt in it. So it's going to add a little bit of flavor. I'm just going to add a little bit because I'm not going to add the cornstarch this time. Other times I do. So it varies. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add my lovely chicken, all the juices and the seasoning that go with it. I'm going to stir that in. I'm going to add my pasta at the same time. So this is a dish where you just mix it all in and finish it all up in the pot. At this point, I just want to heat it through. So everything's already cooked. I'm just heating it through. And then once it's heated through, I'm ready to plate it up and put it in a nice little bowl. I'm going to add some ribbons of fresh basil. Top that off. Let's not be stingy here. And a little bit of Parmesan. And just by using a little bit of fresh herbs and a little bit of Parmesan, you are adding a wow factor, and you will get that fresh, oh my goodness, taste. So that is creamy chicken pasta. You gotta try it. Back to you, Gina.
Oh my goodness, Getty, that looks absolutely fantastic. I love recipes where you can pull everything together in one pan and serve it. And you know, it is great because both of our recipes use spinach, they use peppers. So you put those ingredients on your grocery list and away you go. You can make two very different recipes. You know, we were talking a little bit earlier, Getty, and you had a couple interesting pointers for people to save money and extend their groceries. Can you share a couple of those great tips about how you can, you know, make the most of your produce and things that you can do? You're just such a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, so one of the common things that people have issues with is their greens. So buying the heartier greens is great for you for nutrition. They last longer in the fridge, and they can serve that multi-purpose. But if you're really, you know, that's a little too green for you, a little too hearty, and you prefer something like a romaine lettuce, wrapping romaine in a damp towel and putting it back in the plastic bag, leaving the bag a little bit open, will help keep that romaine nice and crisp and nice and fresh. So even if it started to wilt a little bit, you can use that technique. So if that's the case at our house, I will wash the romaine, spin it dry or pat it dry, and then wrap it in a damp paper towel.
Yeah. Crisp it back up so you're not wasting.
Absolutely. And that idea of meal planning where, you know, you and I have done this, but we could do this at home where you're thinking about how can I use this ingredient in multiple recipes.
Exactly.
you know, meal planning helps prevent overbuying, and which is a big issue, and it can save the number of trips to the store. And every time we go to the store, we have a tendency to impulse buy. So if we can avoid that, we are doing our pocketbooks a favor, and we are doing the environment a favor. That's right as well. Not to mention reducing the packaging if we're using one bag of peppers or whatever instead of buying multiple different things.
Excellent tips, thanks. Sort of that concept of first in, first out of the fridge, and meal plan, make a grocery list, avoid those trips to the store, don't overbuy, that's great. Try and buy ingredients where you can make more than one entree and make that meal plan. It just makes so much sense. So thank you for those great tips, Getty. I am super excited now to show you and everyone else our delicious Manitoba Chicken Producers recipe. It is our warm grilled chicken, spinach, and bean salad. And it's got some excellent economical ingredients in it, like canned beans, like you said, that heartier spinach, one of the first local greens we get here in Manitoba. So to get this recipe started, there is just the simplest of marinades that goes over 4 chicken breasts. So it's a 1/4 cup of balsamic vinegar, something that I love because you can do so many things with balsamic vinegar, and just a couple tablespoons of Dijon mustard. So put those together, give that a little whisking up. Could it be any simpler?
Sounds delicious.
You know what? It's sometimes just the simplest things are the most delicious. So this marinade just goes over these chicken breasts. Getty and everyone else out there tuning in, I just like to move them around a little bit, get them nice and covered. Put these in the fridge for an hour or overnight if you like to do meal prep in advance like I do. Hey, and another great time-saving tip is, guess what? You can actually marinate these chicken breasts and put them in, I've got my freezer bag over here. Put them in a freezer bag, date it, label it, and you can freeze these marinated chicken breasts for 6 months. And for that matter, you can freeze chicken when you find it on sale and you want to stock up. You can freeze chicken parts for 6 months. And one other great tip that not only saves us time and money is that once chicken is cooked, you can actually freeze cooked chicken. So never waste your chicken. If you've made roast chicken and you have leftovers and you don't have time the next day to use them, freeze that already cooked chicken. It can stay in your freezer for 3 months. So those are some awesome, not only time-saving, but also money-saving tips too.
Absolutely. I love that, Gina. We just, you know, it was the first Tuesday of the month. You got 10% off. There was a package that was reduced because it was the best before date. So I cooked that chicken up, and it was more than we needed that night, but I froze the rest of it once it was cooked. And now it's so easy to make a lunchtime salad and add a nice protein, or to quickly have a dish when there's only a couple of people at home or whatever. So fantastic tips.
So, yeah, so that cooked leftover chicken could top our salad that we're making tonight, or go right into your pasta dish. Okay, so now for this dressing. And this is actually another money-saving tip. Not only is this dressing awesome, delicious. I usually make a double batch. It's one of our favorite things. But you know what? Making your own dressing saves money. It also saves packaging from having all those bottles of dressing in the fridge. And it saves you money because it's just that much more economical. So 1/4 cup of our local canola oil goes into this dressing. I love sort of the savory and the sweet contrast of this dressing. There's 2 tablespoons of, you've got it, local maple syrup. Again, we're using another ingredient we used in the marinade. We've got 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar. The juice of about 1 small lemon like this. So a 1/4 cup of fresh lemon juice. Oh my goodness, that citrus just not only smells great, but it brings such nice flavor. A couple cloves of fresh chopped garlic go into this recipe. 1/2 teaspoon of cayenne. If you like cayenne, you can add it. If you don't, I like it. It's really not that hot. It just gives a little tiny zip, and about a teaspoon of salt. So simple, you just whisk this together. Takes only a second. And this will keep in the fridge for a couple weeks, if it lasts that long. So then what you do with this is, as I mentioned, this recipe has 1 can of mixed beans. So you drain the beans, you give them a rinse. A very excellent pantry ingredient to have on hand. Adds fiber, adds plant protein to your salad or any other dish. You pour about half the dressing over these beans. Now, You can do this actually the night ahead and let that dressing marinate on these beans, and they just take on so much flavor. The rest of the dressing goes to top your salad. So what we do is we just layer some of these delicious beans right over top of our bed of spinach, about 3 cups of spinach. And then we've got all kinds of other delicious ingredients. So we've got 1 red onion, and that would be delicious in your pasta as well, Getty. So
right, yeah.
A larger onion, right, between your pasta dish and this salad.
Yep.
Half of a yellow pepper, so the other half went into Getty's pasta dish. So Getty, someday we're going to make these recipes together in the same kitchen.
Yeah, that'd be great. Looking forward to that day.
Me too. But for now, this is just as good. And we're so happy to have everyone that's tuning in to our Manitoba Chicken Producers Earth Day Facebook Live. Welcome if you're just tuning in. We are making our warm grilled chicken, spinach, and bean salad. So I'm topping this now with about half a cup of toasted walnuts. Now, this is an ingredient that you can choose if you love the crunch of the nuts, but if it's a little more costly for you, then you do not have to add this. And that's one of the wonderful things about preparing your own meals. You can control the ingredients. If you don't like something, you can't afford something, or you don't have it on hand, you can use something else. Like Getty mentioned with her pasta, sometimes she'll kind of clean out the fridge and put whatever vegetables she has on hand into that nice creamy pasta. So I've got some chicken breasts that I pulled off the grill a little bit a little earlier, and it is easy to grill them. They grill about 6 minutes on each side. And then I just like to slice these while they're still a little bit warm at an angle. And then it's just so easy to take this sliced chicken and layer it on top of your salad.
That looks so good.
Oh, Getty, this is just an all-time favorite recipe. It's been on the manitobachicken.ca website along with a lot of other wonderful recipes and other great salad recipes, but this is a tried and true favorite. And it just sort of seems to be one of those recipes that we all come back to. And I'm sure everyone will be making this throughout our summer season. So that's just how simple it is to put that recipe together. And, you know, the leftover chicken can go in a sandwich if you have any leftover, or grill double the amount. It's just a simple, delicious marinade. You know, one of the questions I get asked a lot, Getty, is what is your best chicken mileage dish? And one of my favorite things to recommend is a whole roast chicken. It's very economical. It's very simple to prepare. Just a little bit of seasoning. Whole chicken goes in the oven at about 350 for about 90 minutes. And then after you enjoy that roast chicken, the next day, the leftovers, of course, can make fantastic salad like the one we prepared right now. Make a fantastic pasta dish like the one you prepared. And then I like to take the bones and I like to make stock. There is nothing better than homemade chicken stock, and that could be used in your pasta sauce recipe, that stock. The stock can also be frozen for later use. So people often say, well, how do you make stock? People think it's complicated. You don't have to buy chicken stock. I mean, certainly you can, but it's so easy to make. So the bones go into a pot, 1 onion, couple carrots. Hey, I love to use the celery that no one else wants to use for anything else. It's wonderful in a soup stock. If you've got parsley, that's great. A few peppercorns, a few cloves of garlic if you like, and I love to always have a bay leaf or 2 on hand. Just cover the chicken carcass or bones with water, bring it to a boil, and then reduce the heat and simmer for 2 to 3 hours. I like to let my chicken stock sit in the fridge overnight, and then any fat that comes to the top, I just remove, and then you have this beautiful stock that you can strain. You can make delicious soup. You can make all kinds of other recipes with it. So that is one of my favorite mileage tips for getting the best bang for your buck when it comes to making a wonderful chicken dinner. And before we take questions, I have a couple other little tips that I want to share. I, of course, am a dietitian and you're a home economist, and we share so many things in common, and we love to share tips with our consumers out there. I have all kinds of chicken tips and I love those, but hey, guess what? I have a couple other ones for everyone this evening. So this is, as I mentioned, one of my absolute favorite ways to use Manitoba chicken in this salad. I love to pair this salad with multi-grain bread. So that's why I have this bread sitting here as a reminder. One of the questions I was asked all the time when I used to see clients as a dietitian was, what do I do with bread? So just think about this. The minute bread comes out of the oven, it starts to stale. So if we leave it on our counter, it's susceptible to molding. Boom, then we have to throw it out. What a lot of food waste. If we put that bread in the fridge, it gets crumbly and it gets stale. So the best place for bread, just like the best place to store chicken, is the freezer. And take out what you need. And that will always keep your bread nice and fresh. Another little tip, I got these tomatoes here because sometimes with this salad, I will use what I have on hand. I'll add tomatoes, I'll add avocados, I'll add all kinds of other wonderful things. Best place to store tomatoes, guess what? Not in the fridge. You wonder why you take your tomato out, it's all mushy and mealy? That's because it's been stored in the fridge. Store it on the counter. Avocados are a treat in our house, and I like to buy them firm. And if you put them next to bananas in a fruit bowl, they'll start to ripen quickly. And you can tell when an avocado is ripe because it just gets a little soft under your thumb. As soon as it's ripe, don't let that avocado get overripe because darn, you'll cut it open and you'll be throwing out your investment. As soon as it's ripe, pop it in the fridge and you'll get a whole other week from that avocado. It will last in the fridge for about a week. So those are some of my other favorite tips. And I have one other thing I really, really want to share because Manitoba Chicken Producers represents 124 broiler chicken farmers, meaning farmers that raise chicken for meat. And those farmers have been troopers through all of this. We've had access to that local fresh chicken year round. And with today being Earth Day, I want to thank those farmers. And I also want to share a couple important stats. So over the past 40 years, our farmers have worked really hard to embrace technology and innovation in the way in which they farm. And they've been able to reduce their overall carbon footprint by 37%. They've reduced water usage by 45%. And more than 62% of the energy that they use to farm to bring us that beautiful, fresh, local chicken, 62% of that energy is renewable energy. So I think that that is such a great news story, and I wanted to share some of those stats. Our farmers care so much about their farms and their land, and they want to leave the land and the farm in better condition when they pass it on to the next generation. So I just wanted to give a thumbs up and say thanks. And I also want to say thank you to you, Getty, for your wonderful tips, your great recipe. And now I want to open up the floor to the questions. So I'm just going to grab my phone and see what kind of questions we've had this evening.
I love your tips, Gina. And as to that avocado, so you start on the counter, you move it to the fridge. If you then slice it, and maybe you're only using half, the other half, did you know that avocado can be frozen as well? So there's really no reason why avocado ever needs to hit the trash bin or the compost bin. So
I love it because really it's one of those investment things. It's a treat. A little bit goes a long way, and you sure don't want to waste it or any other food for that matter. So Getty, I have a question for you. Okay. You've got a really wonderful question. What is the best way to store fresh herbs so that they last longer? Again, it's one of those things. We invest in fresh herbs as a little bit of a treat, and we certainly don't want them to wilt and then end up, of course we want them to end up in the compost bin if they're not good, but we don't want them to go that way. We want to make use of them, and we want them to enhance our recipe. Do you have a tip for us?
I have an answer, and I can show you what I do at the same time. Let me just quickly run to the fridge here, and I have two examples for you. This is how I store.
Our kitchens are our classrooms, right?
Absolutely. This is how I store my parsley. I treat it like a bouquet of flowers. Now, you know, we are an active family. There's enough of us that sometimes things get spilled. So I like to put a lid on my jar filled with water. Now, normally I try to keep the leaves out of the water and just put the stems in there. And parsley likes being cold, and it likes having that moisture. So that's one tip for parsley. You can do the same thing with basil, except basil likes being nice and warm. So I would put that on my windowsill or on my counter rather than in the fridge. Now, this is my cilantro. Now, this cilantro, I mean, I'm taking a risk bringing it out here, but I want to show you. So this is probably about 2.5 weeks old.
Oh my goodness.
And, you know, it's still usable, but so I wash, I pat dry, or I put it in my spinner, and then I wrap it in a damp cloth, just like recommended for romaine, put it in a plastic bag and leave that open. And then I can monitor it, and if it's starting to go too limp, I can add a little bit moisture. If it's getting too
love that.
put in a dryer towel. So those are the two ways. If you're buying a little plastic container, you'll notice that it usually has that little liner on the bottom. Keep that liner, it absorbs the moisture, keep it in that container, and that's the best that you can do. Remember, the idea is not to keep things for as long as possible. You should be using and enjoying. If they go faster, then go ahead and freeze some of those herbs or dry them on the counter. Our dry climate is easy to dry things on the counter, especially most herbs.
Thanks, Getty. Those are great tips. So we never have to waste those herbs. We can always make use of them. Keep them properly stored in the fridge. Let them dry and crumble and use them as a dry herb on the counter, or freeze them, right? Yep. Awesome. All great tips. So I've had a wonderful question about how long you can store chicken leftovers. I love that question. So after chicken is cooked, it should absolutely go back into the fridge within 2 hours, and your leftovers are excellent for 3 days. So if you can't use them in 3 days, then pop them in the freezer. And a lot of chicken dishes can, of course, be frozen successfully. You always want to thaw your chicken or anything that contains chicken in the fridge overnight and not on the counter for food safety.
Now, Gina, I've had some comments that people have a hard time remembering that they've put those frozen meals in the freezer. So when it comes to meal planning, one of the things I suggest is make one of the nights of your week a freezer meal night so that it's a reminder. So Wednesdays, it's a meal from the freezer. So that's where you will be encouraged and remember to eat those frozen leftovers. Love that.
I also like to put a label on my leftovers too. I'll use often like a sticky tape. I'm going into my kitchen drawers here too, Getty.
Oh, nice.
So a shallow container with a lid, and you can put a little sticky label on here. Is great so you know what it is when it's down in the freezer, because sometimes things start to all look the same when you get a little bit of frost on them. Someone asked me too, I mentioned that you can freeze chicken for 6 months, and can you eat it after that? Absolutely, yes you can, as long as your power has been on and it's been frozen. But sometimes what you might notice is that there's little patches of white on your chicken, and we call that freezer burn. That chicken has just gotten a little bit dry. It's not unsafe to eat, but it becomes a little bit tough. So just cut away any little white patches. And quite honestly, yes, you can eat chicken past 6 months in the freezer. But you know, putting chicken into a freezer bag and labeling it is a great way to go. How many chicken breasts, if it is breasts or if it's thighs, whatnot, and then you always know how fresh that chicken is, and then rotate things.
Awesome. And your comment about that best before date. So we recommend 6 months for frozen chicken, but yes, it is safe to eat afterwards. And best before dates are another one of those things. Those are written on there by the manufacturer, set for best quality. So you can still safely eat food past the best before date. You may have less quality, and of course you'll want to consider how has it been stored, how has it been handled, who has all been managing it. But given those criteria, it should still be safe to eat. So every food is different, but best before does not mean toss by.
Right. Something like meat, like chicken, it should be eaten within 3 days. If you know you can't, then certainly label it.
Yeah, especially the
breasts. Go ahead.
Especially the fresh meat like that. I was more thinking like the frozen meal.
Exactly. I completely understood. That's so true. Yes. So something like this chicken, it's cooked, it's ready to go. It could be sliced, it could be frozen, it could be defrosted overnight, and be topping your salad the next day. So Getty, you know what? The time has absolutely flown this evening. I can't believe how fast the evening has gone by. I want to extend a huge thank you to you, Getty. And I want to extend a huge thank you to all of our followers who have tuned in to learn from us and learn these recipes. We're so appreciative of how many people that take the time to tune into our Facebook Lives. It's such a pleasure to bring you this information. And the conversation certainly does not end here. If you have any questions that we haven't answered, we will certainly be going into the comments. Go ahead and ask us a question in the comments, and we will be very happy to respond to you after tonight's event. And I will be direct messaging 3 lucky people who tuned in tonight for one of those 3 $75 grocery gift cards. Stay safe. Enjoy the beautiful sunshine, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and bye for now.